Hi everyone, today's video is a Techo Kaigi video, and I'm going to talk through my process for working out which planners, journals, etc. I'm going to use for 2024. Now, it is solid talking, start to finish, me going through everything and explaining it in detail. There's not going to be anything particularly pretty to look at, so feel free to just listen. Or you might want to grab a piece of paper and sort of make notes if you're interested in following my sort of version of how I work things out. I don't think I did a Techo Kaigi video last year, and I think it's because, again, just moved back to the UK, first year back, didn't have all that much of a budget, wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, and sort of like I just made it up as I went along, basically. But this year I've had a good sort of run in. I've had a whole year of being back and working out what I need and what I didn't need. And so I've sort of been able to do the process a bit more in an organised manner this year, I would say. And I've already made some purchases. I've almost got almost everything I want for next year. I have gone slightly over budget, but nothing massive. I do put money aside every month, leading up to around about September, October, which is obviously when Hobonichi launch. And then obviously I continue to put money away for the following year from that point. So it's not like a sudden loss of money in 1 month, 1 or 2 months. Yeah, so I'm just going to go through kind of roughly how I work out what I'm going to do. So I put it all out on this sheet. I did actually do a really rough version in one of my notebooks, but I've sort of made a neat version to go through with you. I hope you can see. I might have to turn the contrast up at some point to make it a bit more visible. And I'm going to cover bits up just because, not that it's secret, because I'm going to show you just so that we can go through it bit by bit to make it a bit more understandable. So to start off with, when I'm making my decisions, I have these sort of rules that I've worked out over the years of buying different things and trying different things. My current rules, because obviously they may change and they're not exactly rules as in no one's going to get told off if I break them, but my current sort of guidelines, I would say, I've written at the top, absolutely tiny. Don't suppose you can read them unless I zoom in when I edit. So the first one is number 1, allow blank pages. And obviously the reason that's there is because I always have blank pages. Well, especially if I do a dated planner. Maybe not so much in my Christmas journal, but when I do a dated planner of any sort or dated, journal of any sort, there's always going to be blank pages because life is not uniform, is it? Every day is not the same as the next, and life goes up and down and everything changes all the time. And I don't have the intense discipline to force myself to keep something up every single day for an entire year. It's just not what I have. And actually, I don't think I want that anyway. So there will be blank pages. And if you look at the value of a notebook in terms of I spent this much money and therefore I have to use every single page, try looking at it a little bit differently. Try and look at it as in the value you're getting out of it is what you got out of using it over the whole year. So, yeah, okay, that particular page may have cost you X amount of money, pence or whatever, and you didn't use it, but it came as part of a whole notebook. And that whole notebook, that whole journal, that whole planner has been with you for X amount of time. And throughout that time, it's done you some good because I'm sure most, if not all, journals and planners bring, a positive influence to our lives. They don't make things worse, basically. So therefore, think of it like that. Don't think of it as, money down the drain or whatever. So yeah, number 1 was allow blank pages. Number 2, stay within budget, because then obviously as a caveat to that, obviously you have to stay within your financial means. It's very easy to get carried away, spend lots of money. We know that's a thing. We've all done it probably. So 1, yes, accept you have blank pages, but 2, stick within your budget. So don't, if you can, try and not overspend by hundreds of planners that you're never going to use, because then it does then, veer into the completely wasting your money section. And, money is often quite scarce these days. So yeah, I allow myself blank pages, but I do try very hard to stay within a budget. Obviously, I think I've slightly gone over that this year so far, but we'll just see how it goes. I'm not going to be too hard on myself about that. If I don't set a budget, it would probably be twice as much. For example, maybe not so much these days, but sometimes you have to set a budget as a line, and if you go over that line, yeah, okay, you've gone over it. But if you didn't have that line, you might have shot, skyrocketed God knows where, and you won't have any clue how much you're spending. And not knowing how much you're spending on these things can actually be quite stressful in itself. So set yourself a budget if you need to. If you go over it, don't beat yourself up, but just know it's there as a sort of a guideline. Number 3, no duplications. I do not have the time or the patience or the interest in duplicating what I'm doing. So if I'm writing something down in one planner or one journal, I pretty much do not want to be duplicating that somewhere else. I'm not going to do twice the work because I don't have the time. And I just, personally for me, I don't see the point. I know a lot of people do that. They have like a rough copy planner, and then they do like an archiving version, which is all like neat and nice. And I'm not about that. I can't do that. No duplications. Don't be doubling up work or, doubling up, time, because I don't have the time. Number 4, the need drives the use, drives the spend. So what I mean by that is that in the past I have, and I still do, I think I did it last year really, I've wanted something and I've spent the money, and then I've sat there with the planner or the notebook and looked at it and thought, well, what am I going to use this for? And then I'm, struggling to find a need for it, and I'm sort of creating a need that wasn't really there in the first place. And I need to work harder at doing it the other way around, which is having the need, identifying a need, working out, a planner that could be used for that to help that, sort that problem that I need to sort out, and then spending the money on the journal or planner that I think is going to help me. So yeah, I need to do it one way and not the other way. Hope that makes sense. And then number 5, practical and creative, potentially separate. So what I mean by that is, if I have a planner that is for planning and working out very practical things, I don't want to necessarily decorate it. I've done that in the past. I've got quite a few examples of that where I've had my daily life planner, which would usually be my Hobonichi weeks, which has all the appointments and important information about what's going on in my life. I would have that, and then I would decorate it, and then I'd sort of get a bit lost in the confusion of all the decor, and I wouldn't be able to see what I was doing, and it just it made things a lot harder. I was making things harder for myself. A planner was there to make life easier so that I could remember what I needed to do what day. And then suddenly I'm being visually distracted by so much decor that I can't sort of concentrate on what I'm supposed to be doing. And then it didn't actually help me in the end. On the other hand, I've had journals which have been incredibly visually decorated. And that's such a pleasure in itself to stick stickers down and paint and do all that kind of stuff. But I'm trying to sort of, it's not a hard and fast rule. There are some cases where they're mixed up, and I'll explain that in a minute. But generally speaking, I keep sort of the practical planning, boring, just writing and tick boxes one side, and then the over-the-top ridiculous, cram everything onto a page, decor slightly separately. Now, I am going to attempt something somewhere in the middle this year, which I'll explain later. But generally speaking, I kind of need to separate things like that. Actually, I haven't written it on here, but number 6 is, I don't know if you call it this. I'll have to think of a better word, but the only one I can think of right now. Compartmentalize. Is that even a word? Have I just made that up? Somebody can tell me. What I mean is have a planner for a use. So I like to have one planner for a specific section of my life, and then another one for that section of my life, and then another one for that. And I need to be really careful where I draw the lines. And I'll explain where I draw the lines and why later on. But I don't try and cram everything into one. I haven't done one book July for maybe 3 or 4 years now, and it's because I could do one book July. I could, if I needed to, narrow myself down to one book. Like I have the ability to do that, but I just don't see the point anymore. It's not what I need to do. It's not what I want to do. So yeah, I haven't done that challenge for a long time. I don't feel the need to do it because I feel like I've got my my planning spending under control, so I don't need to kind of force myself to narrow down. I don't have like 50 planners in one year and I'm, panicking about what to use. I generally know what I want to use and what I want to use it for. But yeah, I won't have everything in one, and I do sort of separate things out carefully into their use. So there's my general rules going into a Techo Kaigi, going into like thinking about what I'm going to use for next year. And I really wish I'd done this in pen, but I'm really missing pencil because I've been doing a lot of digital work recently on my iPad, and it's made me really miss textured writing and the feeling of a textured paper. And so I've I've done a bit of pencil work because it just felt nice to do it. So without further ado, here is my giant chart and we'll go through it bit by bit. So what I do is identify what time I actually have to do these things. Okay, so that's the first thing I've got on here. These sections up here, so planning, scrapbooking and decor and journaling, I just kind of did at the end because I realised that I can sort of categorise what I have in that way. So I might explain those at the end. They're just up there because that's where they fit on the page. So the first thing I identify is what time do I have to actually use these planners? Because if time was completely unlimited and in a day I could, spend as much time as I wanted, probably have several more books, let's face it. I spend lots of time in lots of books and I'd be doing lots of different things. But the fact is that in 1 year, because most of these books I use for 1 year, I only have a certain amount of time to actually work on them. So I have to be really careful about that. And when I work on them also informs what I use them for and how I use them and what format they're going to be in. So time. So identify the time that I actually have free. And I often use Hobonichi Cousin to work that out. So here, this is very glaring and hideous, but I actually did it like this, especially for this video, just so that it's very clear. You can see what's going on. This is a very rough outline of my week, an average week, obviously with lots of details missing because nothing is the same week to week. Generally speaking, for example, I wake up at 5 in the morning. So this line, very helpful. I'm so happy that Hobonichi Cousin starts at 5 a.m. because that's actually when I try and get up. I actually got up at 5:20 this morning. But generally speaking, I aim to get up at 5 because I go to sleep at 9 o'clock at night. So I get my 8 hours for anybody who's panicking and worrying. I just get it earlier than the average, perhaps. I think a lot of adults with kids, they take their little, peaceful time in the evening and they send their kids to bed early, and I don't do that. I go to bed same time as my son, but I just get up a couple of hours early instead. And then we've got, the usual things like morning prep routine, breakfast. I've got a day job that I go to. I have a little tiny snippet of time here when I get back from my job before I pick my son up. And the evening is usually obviously full of spending time with my son, doing housework, doing dinner, doing homework, doing showers, blah, blah, blah. We always plan and we try to get it all done by 7 o'clock. And then we have a good chunk of time, 2 hours at the end of the day. We're all in our pajamas and like comfy and fed, done our homework, etc. In theory, we have a good chunk of time, 2 hours at the end of the day before we go to sleep, which I sometimes have to myself to do planning and drawing and journaling and Patreon and illustration and whatever. Sometimes I don't. The only guaranteed time that I can sort of give myself is the very early hours, providing my son doesn't wake up suddenly at 6 o'clock. I can usually get about an hour to 2 hours in the morning, and then I have a bit of time on a Friday because I don't do my day job on a Friday. I have this time and this time. And then sometimes, obviously, I have time in the evening. So I do this every now and then to work out how much time I have to spend on my hobbies, on my planning, and on my illustration, because life changes all the time. And I think it's really important to sort of work out where everything is and how much time I have. So having done that, I know roughly how much time I have to spend on all these millions of planners that I want to buy. And therefore, I don't buy millions of planners because I don't have time. And then I also identify a main purpose. So these purposes have sort of developed over the years, so I know what kind of areas of life I like to have a notebook accompanying that. So, for example, let's go with the first one. So the main purpose of the first one is EDC, so everyday carry. So an everyday carry to kind of keep, general life sorted. And this is obviously used any day, every day, as and when. So some days I don't even look at it at all, to be perfectly honest. I should. But generally speaking, it's not like I have to sit down at a certain time every day and spend a lot of time in it. Some days I do, and I'm working through my finances, for example. But it's a very flexible time usage thing with that one. So the everyday carry, any day, every day, as and when. Then I have creative work. So I like to keep my planning for my creative stuff, so my illustration, things like that. I like to keep that separately. So that will go in a separate book. And the time I've identified to use that are those very early mornings. So, 5 till 7, ideally. And then on Fridays when I'm not working. Obviously, I'm not doing that the entire time. It's just that those are the times when I will be using that book to sort of guide what I'm doing. So I know that if I buy this book, for example, if I invest in a planner, if I buy something, I will have the time to use it, basically. Now, memory keeping is something that I've never been that good at. I do a Christmas journal. Occasionally, I'll do like a one-off journal during the year, like in the summer or something. But I don't. It's not a daily practice for me. It's not something I do routinely throughout the year. But I've always wanted to, and I've always been a bit lame at it, to be perfectly honest. But I have said if I want to do that this year, I will try and do that in the evenings. So I can be doing that while my son's, playing computer games or whatever. I can do that in the same room as him if he wants company. I can sort of travel around into the other room if he wants me there, or in here, or whatever. Do a little bit of memory keeping because it is low pressure. I don't have to do this. This is probably my lower priority, even though I think it's one of the things I regret not doing. Just because it's more of an effort for me, is kind of been pushed to a lower priority. But yeah, that would be in the evenings. And then my last category is therapeutic and personal writing. So that would be things like morning pages or writing to sort of let off steam. And those I tend to do in the early mornings, but I put as needed because obviously if I'm really having a bad day, I'm really stressed, I might need to do a little bit in the evenings or whenever. So those are my main sort of categories of purpose, and I've identified that I do actually physically, in the day, I do have the time to use it, which I know sounds kind of crazy, but it is really important to do that because, like I said, if time was unlimited, I could buy 50 planners, but it really isn't. So I can't. And then I've written down the detailed functions, what I'm going to use them all for. So my everyday carry I use primarily for making notes about home, family, finances, my day job, life generally, and health. So it's kind of like sort of the core planner, everything to do with home and life and family, etc. My creative work planner will be about things like Patreon, YouTube, illustration, planning, like creative planning, study and research. So I've got a few courses coming up that I'm wanting to do next year, like illustration courses and things, just online things. So I'll make notes about that in it, jot down inspiration, jot down notes and ideas. That's the kind of bulk of stuff that normally goes in my creative planner. So memory keeping, ideally, if I do it, writing down memories, writing down the best moments in our days, writing down, recording ordinary life. So it tends to be that I record, Christmas, or I record a trip or a holiday, but actually I think it's really important to record ordinary life, and I'd like to do more of that. Stick photos in, stick random ephemera in that I have, maybe sort of indulge in a bit of, writing about my hobbies and things like that. So, for example, when I'm deciding what Hobonichi to buy for each year, this all might end up in this kind of journal, because it's all sort of like sticking pictures in and all that kind of stuff. And then for the therapeutic personal writing, it'd be things like morning pages, writing to settle and calm myself, writing to find myself, working out, what I think and what I do, finding my focus and finding my way. That is the purpose, the function of this kind of writing. And at this point, I could probably explain what's going on up here. So I realised as I was doing this that I can sort of categorise my 4 sections into half of them about planning. So these 2 involve planning, like working out what I'm going to do when, looking at a monthly schedule, looking at a weekly schedule and saying, okay, to-do list, I need to do this then, this then. So it would be my life to do planning and then my creative planning. And then I've also got writing that I do, which is pure journaling. So just writing down how I feel, what's going on in our lives. So I've put these 2 in sort of the journaling section. So memory keeping would involve some sort of journaling, writing down bits from our lives. And obviously the personal writing is definitely journaling. It's like hardcore, 100% journaling. So I realised I could kind of divide it into 2 there. I occasionally do a bit of journaling in here, but mostly not. It would mostly go on here. And then in terms of decor and scrapbooking, I realised that these 2 in the middle are the ones where I would be actually doing any scrapbooking, sticking things in and doing decorating, whereas these 2 at the edge, I wouldn't. And I thought that was kind of quite a nice way of categorising everything, because I like to do that, clearly. So for my everyday carry, my planning, like I said earlier, it's very practical, it's very information based, and therefore I don't want to do any sort of decor in there because it distracts from it. The therapeutic writing is just pure writing. I never doodle, well, very rarely. Sometimes I might, do a diagram or something. But generally speaking, it's just writing. There's no decor. But these 2 in the middle, that's where I like to do my decor. And I just thought it was quite nice the way I categorise those. This is just a thing that I like to do, clearly. So yeah, that explains what that is at the top. Okay, so the next thing I need to consider is, because this does feed into what kind of book I buy and what kind of format I use, am I going to archive it? So when I finished it, usually at the end of the year, is it going to be archived? Is it going to be something I keep forever and I'm going to want to go back and read? I always keep my everyday carries because they are a sort of a record of our everyday lives, and they also contain quite a lot of information that I would want to go back and look at. So I always keep my everyday carry. I definitely keep my creative planner as well, because again, it's something I go back and look at and it is a record of my life. I also archive and keep any memory keeping, because basically that's the whole point of it. So it would be daft not to. But no, I do not keep my random journaling and ranting. Now, some of it I have kept because it's been mixed up in the same book as some of this other stuff, which I feel a bit funny about, because even though I think there's a perfectly legitimate reason to keep your sort of journaling, because it is you, it's your life, it's a record of what you went through, your ups and downs, your struggles, your joys, all this kind of stuff. And absolutely, if you want to keep that as a record, definitely do that. And I know a lot of people do. However, I feel a little bit like when I keep it, it sort of sits on my shelf a little bit like a weight in the back of my mind, because I know a lot of it is me going through some really difficult stuff, working out some quite stressful situations, or just having a rant or a moan. And I always come round. I mean, this is the whole point of doing the writing. When I do my ranting and moaning, I usually come round to some sort of solution, like for 99% of the things, and a way forward. But some of the times I'm not, and it can get to sort of ruminating over a problem that I can't fix or I'm not able to do something about. And I don't think there's any, at this point, I don't think there's any benefit in me keeping that writing and then going back to read it at a future date, because it just kind of makes me a bit miserable, really. What is worth keeping is snippets from the writing, the points where I work things out, or where sometimes the whole, joy of doing this, the amazing thing about doing this writing, where you're just writing a free form, stream of consciousness writing, is you'll surprise yourself and you'll suddenly come out with something like a solution or a way of moving forward, or, quite a deep, profound thought. And you're like, oh, okay. Those bits I like to keep. So I have in the past done it all on loose leaf paper and then cut those pieces out, like literally cut them out and stuck them down somewhere. And then everything else gets shredded or burned or just shoved in the bin or whatever. So what I've done is I've written curate, cut, and dispose. So the idea would be, ideally, I write all my writing out. I cut out the bits that I need to keep and want to carry forward, and then all the other stuff, just get rid of it, because I think that in itself, that act of cutting and curating and then disposing of the bits you don't need, is actually also really beneficial. So yeah, archive, yes, yes, yes. No, curate, cut, dispose. That's the plan. So then that leads into what practical format I'm going to need for each. So for my everyday carry, it needs to be portable, because I need to have something I can just shove in my bag and carry around. And I don't like carrying heavy bags. I'd rather not have a bag at all. I'd rather just have pockets, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, it needs to be portable and lightweight. It needs to be sort of trustworthy and reliable. I know my way around it. I know what I'm doing. I don't want to be thinking too much about it, if you know what I mean. So yeah, familiar. You might be guessing what it's going to be at this point. That is how I need my everyday carry to be. Practical format for creative work. Okay, so when it comes to like a planner for my creative work, my creative side, I want it to be spacious. I don't want it to be cramped. I want it to feel like it's full of potential. There's loads of space. I could use this, do that. I can really spread out. I can really sort of experiment. It needs to be exciting, because I want to go into my sort of creative planning feeling a sense of excitement and feeling like, I don't know, great things are going to happen. I see it as an investment. So if I spend a little money on this one, it's not the end of the world, because I am trying to develop this side. I am trying to get better illustration. I am trying to sort of do more of that in my life. Yeah, and potential. I want it to have potential, as in, I may not know what to do with every page, but there's lots of pages for me to play with. So yeah, those are the practical format wishes for my creative planner. For memory keeping, so since I struggled with this in the past, and I don't know, I've not really been able to do it consistently, I've decided that if I'm going to do memory keeping this year coming up, next year, it needs to be small. So nothing big, nothing sort of ambitious. I am sort of constrained by time as well. This is the one I'm not sure if I'm going to have that much time for, so therefore it needs to be small and manageable. It needs to be bulk upable, and by that I mean, if I'm going to stick lots of photos and things in it, it needs to be a format that you can do that, and you can do that all the way through to the end of the year. So it's not like halfway through the year your plan is too bulky and you have to abandon it. And it needs to be flexible, simply because I'm still not confident of how I'm going to do that. So I don't want to choose a format that means I have to stick to it the whole year, do it a certain way, for example. That's what I need for my memory keeping. For therapeutic and personal writing, I like to have a nice pen and paper combination. I don't want to find that the physical act of writing in itself is uncomfortable, because I like to get in the flow of writing. I like to write really fast. I like to just not be thinking about the writing and just be doing it. I like to have a good combination of pen and paper, and I will spend a bit of time testing out different pens and different papers to work it out. So yeah, I like to be comfortable when I'm writing, and ultimately I want this to be disposable. So I'm not going to use the most expensive notebook I have, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to buy a ridiculously expensive notebook and then shred it, because that's a bit daft. So, I mean, I have used a slightly expensive notebook before, but I'm not going to do that again. Yeah, so nice pen paper, nice and comfortable, and ultimately disposable. So I've identified what physically, what practically I need for each section in terms of format. So, editing Emily coming in here to say that I've missed off something fairly crucial, and that is to write down things like, do you need like a monthly spread? Do you need weekly? Do you want weekly vertical, weekly horizontal? In terms of the planner design, and we're talking about planning, what layouts do you need? Do you want to do Gantt charts? Do you want to kind of a pre-filled in habit tracker? Things like that. At this point, this is where I would normally work out what those needs were. I think the reason I skipped it is because I kind of know which ones I'm going to do anyway for next year. So I already know which formats I need and what works. But if you're not sure, this is the point at which you would say, okay, this is like the general need, the general practical format need. I want it to be portable. But within that, inside it, I also need a monthly spread, a weekly spread, blah, 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 blah. At this point, that's where you'd be asking yourself those questions and identifying what kind of layouts you want inside your planners and journals. Also something to consider is decor. Am I going to be putting decor in there? Because that obviously affects what format you're going to get. So I've said minimal decor for my everyday carry, which, to be honest, most of the time will be no decor. I might just change that. No decor. So minimal or no decor. I might put the occasional sticker in, like I do that, but generally speaking, no decor. A creative work where relevant. So I'm not going to decorate it for the sake of it. I'm not going to decorate my creative planner just to make it pretty. Obviously, I do illustration and I make illustrations and I sell them and I, do things through Patreon and I print things off. I will want to keep a record of that in my creative planner. So I will be sticking things in my creative planner, but it's not going to be like doing it just for the sake of it, if you know what I mean. It's going to be where relevant. Memory keeping, am I going to do decor? Yes, because this is basically the only area where I can't do it. So yes, I definitely want to do it. And like I said, I've chosen a format which is going to be bulk upable so that I can stick things in and just play around and sort of enjoy myself. Am I going to be doing decor for my therapeutic writing? No, none. It's just straight writing. So that's an easy one. Next, what did I use for 2023? So for the previous year, what format did I use? So for my everyday carry, I used a Hobonichi Weeks. For my creative work, I used Midori MD notebook, which was the A5 frame format. For memory keeping, so the only memory keeping I did in 2023, I did one traveler's notebook insert, regular size, and that was for a journal for when we went to Japan in the summer. And I haven't done it yet, but I will be doing a Christmas journal, and I've written JJ in there, which just means junk journal, because I will be doing that. Those are the only sort of memory keeping journals I've done for 2023. For my morning journaling, my therapeutic personal writing, I have been using an A5 Stalogy, but I think that is going to change because it's a bound book, it's a gorgeous book, but like I said, I don't want to keep it. I want to create, cut and dispose. So this definitely has to change. So having gone through all of that, that's the point. If I was doing this very in order and neatly, I would go and look at what, planners are available and what options are available. But I've already bought a few of these. But it all works. It all fits into my categories quite nicely. So for 2024, this is what I've written down. I might as well just reveal the whole thing now. So for 2024, my everyday carry is going to be Hobonichi Weeks, which, no surprises, it is the same every year pretty much, or it has been for quite a few years. And I have bought Hobonichi Weeks for my everyday carry. For my creative planner 2024, I'm using the A5 Cousin Hon version. For my memory keeping, I've got 4 here. Let me turn it around. So every year I do a Christmas journal and I normally make it. So I have no idea what format it's going to be. That I'll decide that next autumn probably. It'll be something that I make anyway, so there's no point trying to guess it now. So that is going to be my Christmas journal. I've written here traveler's notebook, regular or pocket for any travel journal. So if we go on a little holiday, if I find that I need to make a separate journal when we go to Japan, if we go to Japan in the summer, I'll just use a traveler's notebook for that because that worked last year. And then I've written traveler's notebook vertical for memory and scrapbooking. So this is a new thing for me. I mean, actually the A5 Hong cousin is new, but I've used cousins before. This one I've never had before. So traveler's notebook, weekly vertical. So I've seen lots of people do gorgeous vertical memory keeping spreads. And I was watching a Simone video yesterday and it suddenly clicked that it might be the manageable format I've been looking for. I mean, obviously I knew it existed and I've seen lots of people do it before, but it was just the fact that you can do a whole week of memory keeping in one sitting if you need to, which is ideal for me because it may come down to that I, at the end of the week, I then go back and fill in the whole week. I'm not going to do this daily. It's just not going to happen. So in a traveler's notebook vertical weekly, you can sort of stick roughly, it's obviously Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, etc. You can stick roughly to the day that the memory happened, or you can just be flexible and just be like, here are the week's memories, or, you know, and you can do it any way you like. It just seems like ultimate flexibility. Also, it is small, so it fits in my little categories. It's small, so it's manageable. It's bulk upable because it comes in 2 parts. You've got January to June and then July to December. So I can stick things in and not worry about it. And it is flexible because if I decide I'm not going to use it for that, there's probably going to be another use for it because it's only small. So that is something I have ordered and it is on the way. And then, as you can see, there is another little Hobonichi Weeks here, and that is because I want to start doing gratitude again, or remembering the best bits, or writing down the positive memories, but I'm going to do that with my son. So I do have another Hobonichi Weeks to try and do that, and that again is going to be something in the evenings that hopefully we take, 2 minutes to do together. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah, so I figured this is kind of like all of this together makes up my memory keeping. And then for my therapeutic writing, my ranting, my personal writing, my journaling, my thoughts, I'm going to go back to loose leaf paper. So, as I said, I'm in an A5 Stalogy, but I want to be able to cut things up and not feel like I'm ruining a gorgeous notebook. So I am going to have to think about what I'm going to do with this because I'm probably like a fifth of the way through the notebook. So I might have to do a bit of notebook surgery, take the pages out, so that I'm still left with a sort of a semblance of a A5 Stalogy notebook if I ever want to use it again. But I'm going to go back to loose leaf paper, and I'm shopping my stash for this. I've got an old paper chase notebook that I'm going to start off with, use all that up first, and then probably just go to, like normal loose leaf refill pads, are they called? Or you can just write on it and chuck it and do whatever. So I've identified all my formats for my categories of my journaling for next year. The only other thing to do is think about pens. For all 3 Hobonichi, I have now finally reached the point where I don't have the patience anymore to experiment with pens and to wait for ink to dry. And, Tomoe River paper is gorgeous to write on, but it just drives me mad with the smearing. So from now on, I'm just going to use permanent ink in a fountain pen, and that's it. Not faff around trying to find like fun pens to use. It's just going to be probably platinum carbon ink. I might try out the Diamine Registrar's ink. Any ink that's permanent in a fountain pen is going to be used in these because I can't deal with any more smearing or just, I don't know, nonsense. So in all of my Hobonichis, 1, 2, 3 is going to be permanent ink in a fountain pen. Everything else, which is using Midori paper, I guess, the TNs use Midori paper, Christmas journal, God knows what paper, loose leaf paper. I'm just going to use random inks and random pens that I like. So this is where I can have fun using different coloured inks and different pens and all that kind of stuff. It will be in this lot, but this lot, as I said, Hobonichi, just permanent ink. So yeah, that is my ginormous marathon explanation of how I come to my conclusions about how to choose what planners to use. So I don't know if this is useful. I hope it was useful. It was a very, very talky video and nothing really to look at beyond this. I'm wondering, I might put this on Instagram or my website. I don't know. If you think this will be useful to have this, to, you know, do a similar version for yourself, let me know. Perhaps if I obviously edit out my choices, maybe I can make a sort of a sheet to fill in if this is useful for you. But to be honest, just get a big piece of paper, scribble it out. You can write down these categories or down one side, and then, you know, fill it in as you go. You can write rules at the top if you want. You don't have to do it like this, obviously. But yeah, if you found this useful, let me know. And I'm going to do some videos for each category shortly. So I'm going to do one talking about my everyday carry. So I'm going to talk about all the previous everyday carries, what I've used, and what I'm going to use for 2024. I probably won't do a setup video, but I might show you how I've set things up once I've done it. And again, for my work planner, perhaps I'll do a video about that. Memory keeping, I probably won't do a video about, because there will be separate videos about my Christmas journals. And what have we got here? The Traveller's Notebook doesn't exist yet. I won't be showing my Japanese one because it is very personal photos and things like that. But yeah, I don't think I'll do a video about these as a whole, and I won't be doing a video about this, obviously. But I might do like a couple of videos about these two, just to kind of show you how I'm setting them up, if you're interested. So yeah, this was a very, very talky video. Very long. I do apologise. It's like 40 minutes. I hope it was useful. That is my plan. That is my Techo Kaigi. That is the meeting I've had with myself, and I've now shared it with you. And I hope you found it interesting. And I will see you soon. Bye.